Good morning, everybody. Pastor Mike here. Following up from the final teaching, raw stories of reconciliation of Genesis 33 with Jacob and Esau's reuniting. Lots of questions this week, which was great to respond to. I'll do the best I can to walk through these. Glad that you're asking and thinking about these things, and lots of great conversations from that. And really the whole series has been really wonderful to walk through it. It's been a journey for me too, where I think going into the series, I had a certain expectation, and what came out of it was much different than I expected in a good way, but just not. That's what's wonderful about the journey of doing this. So anyway, let's just plow through these. There's a lot of questions here. First question: could Hitler possibly have been from the line of Esau? All I can say is possibly. That would be a lot of work to try to figure that out. No idea. I guess in some ways, I don't. I personally don't get too concerned about trying to follow that too much. Like, it doesn't. It is a fascinating thing. I think behind it, maybe one of the things to think about. We haven't taught about this, at least since I've been here. Doesn't mean it hasn't been taught at New Ground, but the idea of generational sin or transfer of things is a very real thing, and sometime I hope to dive into that. It's really fascinating. So I don't know if that's part of the line of that question or not, but yeah, I don't get too wrapped up trying to figure that out, but it's, I could say it's possible, right? Okay. Second question: is it possible that Jacob did not continue with Esau because he knew Esau was godless and he didn't want that life for his family? So this is sparked from the what happened in the story was, Esau says, "Come back with me." Jacob says, "Oh, everybody's tired. We're real slow," kind of like giving excuses basically, and then goes the other direction. It's kind of like, seems kind of like he's deceptive again. And so this question is like, well, maybe because Esau was going that way, that it was kind of protection for his family, really, by God. And I would say, yeah, that's definitely possible, and I wouldn't put it out of the realm of possibility at all. A question I thought about in relation to this, and actually this person came up to me and asked this question on Sunday, which was great. So I said, is it possible that what happened with Esau and being godless was a result of what happened at this moment? I don't know the answer to that either, but it is interesting. I'm a both and kind of guy. That's why I say it's not tied up in a pretty bow, but it could be possible for all of those things. I think some of the other questions we'll dive into more deeply with what this question may be kind of leading to, so I'll kind of get into that. Next question: is the step of reconciliation necessary / important toward a former church that has hurt you, or in that case, is it best to continue to pray for grace and just try to let it go? This is a really good question. I feel reluctant to share in some ways, but just out of respect for people of the past. But I have had some horrendous church experiences. And really, for me, a lot of it is as a pastor, because that's most of my Christian journey. So I became a Christian when I was 17. I was involved in churches after that, but I was really functioning as a pastor pretty much from the get-go, it seems. And so when I was working in a church, especially the first 10 years of vocational ministry, I had some deep hurt from people in the church. And so in this question, is it necessary toward a former church that has hurt you to pursue reconciliation? I mean, the simple answer is yes, but I also know, I'm thinking of one church specifically for me. I don't know if I've done that at all. And part of me is like, okay with that. It's probably not in the big picture. It probably isn't the best way to live, the way that God calls us into. But for me, it's a boundary that I've made, and there's a lot of great work I'm actually reading now in this, that we don't do reconciliation well in churches, especially institutional church, and It's a lot of stuff that I haven't heard before that seems really good. Um, but I will say this. I mean, if this is recent, and I'm not sure where this question is coming from, but this is recent. Again, I think boundaries, a time of letting go is okay. And I really think a lot of this, it taps into the process of grieving, right? I don't know if we have been taught well how to grieve. And I don't know if you're familiar with the stages of grieving. And I'm looking at the time thinking, okay, I don't think I have time to dive into this right now. But there's you could look it up. Just Google stages of grieving. It'd be really good to look up because it's very true that we just don't know how to do that well. And one of those stages, I mean, you get angry, right? You get angry for what has been done, and the time period of that anger varies for people. For me, it was a long time. I feel like now I've kind of moved forward from that stage of grieving, but as far as like even when I was saying on Sunday about the next step, I don't know if I've really done that. Well, maybe I haven't done that to the effort I expect myself to. I'm not really sure, but I'm thinking whoever asked this question, if you're in a place right now where you were just hurt by a church in a deep way, please don't hear me say you need to go reconcile right now. I mean, that's not what I'm saying. This is the same kind of question when you talk in some ways about for those who have talked to me about domestic abuse situations. It's more complex than people want to give it credit for, and that's why I say it's not tied up in a pretty bow. Yes, you should continue to pray for grace. And letting it go eventually, yeah. I mean, eventually that's part of the grieving process. I don't call it, I mean, yeah, letting it go is a good description, but also moving forward. It's a both. It's letting go and moving forward. When I said, you don't forget the past, but you let it go. I mean, what it means is like letting go of the past is letting go of the bitterness that had come with that pain. And asking God, what are you trying to teach me in the midst of this? It's easy to blame God in the midst of these things, but to actually ask God, what am I hearing in the midst of this? I mean, the fact is, people hurt people, right? They just do. That's one thing we forget. We like to rebel against the institution, which, again, systems matter, but systems are created by decisions after decisions from people. That create a bigger thing. And so when churches hurt people, the first thing I tell people and the first thing I've had to tell myself is that they're people, that hurt you. To blame the church in general, you got to be really careful about that. But people hurt people. And yes, the church is a group of people, right? So it gets a little layered, but I would say if this is recent for you, then you need to have a break. It's okay to have a break, but at the same time, to walk through that grieving process is important. And since this person asked this question and they're here at New Ground, I'm guessing, since that was where this question came from, and I just want to say to any of you, or you could share that what have you, someone told me sometimes you have to go to another place, another community, just to sit there and just heal and sit in the back and just take it in and don't get plugged in. If you just need to sit and be to get your soul back, then so be it. That's great. We can be a place for that for sure. So I want to give you that encouragement in that regard. And I also want to extend to you, I'd love to talk with you. I have experienced this a lot of my church journey. And so I think it'd be great just to connect and hear your story. But anyway, it's hard, it's complex. Don't hear me saying you better go back and reconcile. You're not being a great Christian. It's not that at all. That's where I'm saying the layer of complexity matters. So take it for what it's worth. I could spend a lot longer talking about this because I'm just not, my mind's gonna be racing on this. So anyway, hopefully it's a little helpful in that. All right, next question. How do we determine where to seek reconciliation and where to let sleeping dogs lie? How do we move forward in a healthy way from situations that ended, quote unquote, poorly, and now they're kind of going around, without looking forever for the, quote, tied up in a pretty bow, unquote, ending? Good question. I think, part of this, part of the teaching for me, for the first question, how do you determine where to seek it and where the sleeping dogs lie, is one, you got to bathe it in prayer, and ask yourself, and this is where the humility comes in, do I need to extend a branch here, and what does that look like without violating care for my own soul? In some situations, there's only so much your soul can handle, and that whole, that's why I told the story of Thomas, right? Doubting Thomas, as he's called, because Thomas was so traumatized. I don't know if you've ever had a moment, where I have had a few of these moments, where you've bought into something or someone, or you're like, the trust is completely there, and literally it's just pulled out from under you, and you had no expectation or even knowledge that it was going to happen. And that feeling that comes with that, the betrayal, the anger, all of that stuff, and then to say, I have to extend an olive branch, especially if that person is not sorry, or if that person has no awareness of what's going on, or what have you. There's a boundary, there's a tension there that you have to pray through. And sometimes it's not about, like, it's almost like giving permission, and some ways me giving you permission to say don't do anything, but there is some time that you have to have a boundary to heal, a little bit. But the full restoration, is, that's part of the reconciliation process between two people. God is in the business of mending relationships back together, starting with him and us, right? So, you just have to remember that this is what God has done. Look at what God has done. Look at the example of Jesus, and then ask yourself the question, what does that mean for ours? And it does mean you have to ask some hard questions. It does mean it's uncomfortable. So, yeah, there's a tension there, but at the same time, some people have used this to say, you need to go back to someone who's abusing you over and over again, because that's reconciliation. That's not reconciliation. That's abuse. All right? Reconciliation involves two people who are pursuing the same thing. Reconciliation means both people are humble. Both people are pursuing repentance. Both people are pursuing a way forward. It's not going back to someone who is who's unrepentant, who it continues to abuse. That's not reconciliation. So, don't confuse those things. And at the same time, how do you move forward in healthy situations that ended poorly? That's where the awkwardness thing comes in, right? You got to take the risk. If we really are seriously ministers of reconciliation, what does that look like? Some people aren't even aware of what reconciliation looks like. Maybe you aren't either, but like even the steps of that, or even like, I don't know, and they feel just as awkward as you do, and maybe you need to take the first step. Maybe you need to take the first step toward it, and they in turn will enter into that space with you. That's really what reconciliation is doing. You're entering into the same space as far as the relationship's concerned. And sometimes, I think about God, right? This is what he does with us. He enters into our space, right? Even if sometimes he's pulling us in, right? A lot of times it seems that way. He's almost dragging us in, at least that's my experience, right? Yeah, this is where it says it's not tied up with a pretty bow, because the result of that may not be in your favor. The result of that may not be exactly what you thought it would be. Most of the time it's not. And at the same time, there's surprises. At the same time, there's those little moments. All that said, what I do know is that extending out a branch, eventually, given all the stuff I've said previously right now in this video, there is something to that, and something good about pursuing that kind of act. That's a pretty layered question. It's a great question, but it's the best I got right now on that. And then final question, how can cutting others from your life show grace to them? How can you tell a person should be removed? I don't know exactly the context of the question, like if they're thinking of a particular situation. How can cutting others from your life show grace to them? I'm a pretty stubborn guy. Sometimes the only way for people to come face to face with their true selves is to be exiled. By the way, that's part of the story of the Bible, and we haven't gotten into that, but there's a rhythm of exile. And sometimes you have to be in those moments to come to your senses. Now, you may not think that's grace, but where the grace comes in is the fact that you're in the wilderness. You may have been exiled or cut off, and yet God is still with you, trying to woo you back, right? To me, that's grace. Because I'm thinking of myself in these situations. I don't deserve it. I don't. If I have done something that have deserved me getting cut off, I don't deserve grace, undeserved gift. I don't deserve that, but God still extends it to me. But for now, it means I need to be cut off. I think cut off. What people think that might mean is cut off and just cut off forever. Or I like the image of pruning much better. Yeah, you're cut off in a way, but the idea behind it is to help you be stronger. I don't know the context of the question or what's going on with that, but there are moments that you just have to make clear lines and cut off, and then for yourself and also for them, to lead you to repentance. That's the goal, to lead you to turning away from the way that destroys us, which the Bible calls sin, and walking into wholeness and shalom. How can you tell a person should be removed? And again, I don't know the context. When you're talking about a church, it's a whole different question. As far as an organized church, that's something I'm not going to get into in this video. But as far as from your life, this is where the boundaries come in, right? Sometimes, and if I've done this with people, I'm just really clear with them. I just say, hey, listen, and I say it this way: I don't know how to emotionally handle what this relationship looks like right now with us. And I'm not saying I don't want to move forward. I'm just telling you right now, I just need some time. And I do want to continue to pursue some way of moving forward, but right now it's just too hard. Now, some people stay there forever, and that's another thing they have to deal with. But I feel like for me, it's just being honest enough to say, I'm like Thomas, look, I need to see the holes in the hands and feet, because I want to hope that this is true so bad that we can move forward, that can move on. And this is, for him, Jesus is alive. But I just don't, if I go there again and I get hurt again, I don't know if I'll ever come back. Those are real things, right? And so you have to consider those things when you're making these boundaries. So anyway, for what it's worth. Man, a lot of great questions. It's just absolutely fabulous. So glad that you asked them. Just to let you know, this Sunday, really big Sunday, our Vision Sunday, I'm so excited to share with you all the things God has been stirring in us as a church to propel forward. And we're going to talk about kind of the big picture. It's going to be a lot different. We're going to have a potluck afterwards. There's a ton of people sharing stories, which I'm really excited about. And these stories are incredible. It's just, I didn't even know 90% of the things that were going on when these people that are shared their stories. And so it just gets me geeked about the kinds of things God is already doing and what he's calling us into. And so I hope you'll be a part of that come this Sunday, starting at 10. So thanks for all the questions. Look forward to seeing you on Sunday for an epic moment in New Ground's history. It's also our 6th birthday, which means we'll have cake. So I hope you'll be able to be there as well. We will see you on Sunday. Grace and peace, everyone.